Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Rumcast. My name is John Gulla, and reuniting with me once again is Will Hookinga, and together we are the podcast that talks all things rum related with the people who love and shape it. We do have a great feature interview episode today from a distillery on the island of Réunion that is making waves, you might say, in the US and Europe with a pair of recent releases by independent bottler La Maison Velier, and we thought, hey, 2 releases recently, why not bring on 2 representatives, right?
Yeah, why not? I think the only thing people may quibble with in your intro is calling La Maison Velier an independent bottler. I think they prefer the term dependent bottler. But
that's true.
Anyway, I think listeners get the gist of what it is. They've seen those releases around lately, the two Isautier releases, and we'll certainly get in depth on those during the interview and shared some of our own thoughts on those as well. We got a chance to try those. Both really, really good rums. And I think I'm seeing a lot of positive reactions out there to those right now. So it was really fun to talk to Yann and Marie about that and everything they're doing there. But John, you know what's on my mind right now? We're having what is commonly referred to up here as our first false fall of the season. So it's that time of year where I know you don't really have seasons so much down there in Miami, but
it is hot as heck right now, yeah.
False fall is when you get a sudden early onset of fall-like weather, and it's super early for that to happen here. We've had temperatures in the mid-70s in August. The past 2 days, just middle of August, that does not happen very often in Nashville. And so anyway, when those fall temperatures start coming in, the first thing I think of is football season is almost here. It's just kind of a nostalgic thing from my childhood growing up in college football country. But those feelings have been replaced because last year we started a new tradition on this podcast. And now, instead of thinking about football, the thing that's on my mind is the second annual Rumcast Fantasy Rum Draft is almost here. And so my only question for you is, have you been studying?
Without a doubt, I've been studying. Not only, so you mentioned, yes, it's fantasy football team also, and I have some fantasy football teams I've been studying for, but let me tell you what's taken precedent right now is starting to study some rum websites and see what's in the out there that we might be able to pull together, that I can pull a team that's going to definitely 100% beat the crap out of yours this time.
Well, it was kind of an embarrassing showing last year for you, so that's why I wanted to know if you're spending a little extra time strategizing.
I don't know that I'd call it embarrassing. What, you won by a few votes? What was it? Something like that?
A few. I think it was maybe a few hundred. I think is what happened. We'll have to pull the results back up. But anyway, that is something that's around the corner, something we had a really good time doing last year, had a bunch of great reactions to it. And of course, we always let the listeners, you, the people, determine the winner of who assembles the best made up roster of rums. So it's essentially we're each creating our own private rum bar from a predetermined selection. We take turns drafting picks, and we see who comes up with the best one. We talk a little trash. We came up with some good rules. We have a good foundation from last year, so I'm excited to build on that this year. I think we'll probably have a few new ideas. I think we're going to use a different online store for the inventory this year, so mix up the available rums, that kind of thing. So something that I'm definitely looking forward to, and I think that should be coming in the next few weeks. We've got to get that on the calendar, but that episode should be coming soon. But in the meantime, I had a great episode last week. Have loved seeing the reactions coming in from our lazy rum cocktails for summertime. Gotten a number of people throwing in their go-to lazy rum cocktails, which has been great to see.
Pretty awesome to see all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to shout out a few other recipe ideas we got in real quickly before we get into the interview, but Chris Bailey over on our Patreon left a comment saying that his go-to cocktail, he has 2 actually. One is a classic grog recipe, which is 2 ounces of rum of choice, a 1/4 ounce rich simple syrup, a 1/4 ounce fresh lime juice, a little ground nutmeg, and a big ice cube, just kind of stirred together in the glass with the ice cube blast. So that's not something I've done. And I think my own definition of lazy rum cocktails, it didn't allow for fresh citrus. So I may have to make an exception to try to throw that in the rotation and see what happens. Chris also recommended the Dark and Stormy, which I didn't talk about in our episode, but is another one of my go-to cocktails. Love just, ginger beer, rum, can't go wrong. But on the note of ginger beer, Mike Streeter, who was a guest recently, he commented and said his go-to is Mount Gay Eclipse with ginger ale for his lazy drink. So I hadn't thought of mixing ginger ale before. For some reason, ginger ale is a drink that comes to my mind of like something I have when I have an upset stomach. It's like, I don't know what if your mom when you were a kid was like, oh, you're not feeling well, have some ginger ale. But that was kind of a standard remedy in my house. So that's what I associate it with. But it's probably good. So maybe I should try that sometime too.
Yeah, I think I was of the same kind of thing growing up. Ginger ale was what you drank when your stomach hurt or whatever. But I have to say, I love ginger ale. And honestly, I think Mike's right. I prefer it to ginger beer. I know that might be heresy for some people to hear, but I think ginger beer is just a little bit more robust, and maybe I'll grow into it over time because I'm new to kind of mixing with ginger beer. But I like the ginger ale and rum experience. Is it hits right for me.
All right,
so, Mike. Yep. You and I, Florida boys. We're down for the same thing.
I'll have to try it. But what about you? Did you see any interesting reactions? Anything? Did you have anyone making angry daiquiris?
So I wish I could tell you, Will, that people were making angry daiquiris all over the place, but sadly that's not the case because it seems like everybody's making Willis's Punch. And
I wasn't trying to set you up for that, but we did see quite a few like really great looking Willis's Punches, better looking than the ones that I make. People were throwing the pineapple frond garnish in there and everything. It's making me want to step my game up, but you may have been you needed a highly specialized fruit, the sour orange for yours, which I think you have to, live in a specific part of the world or part of the country in order to source those fresh. So you were at a little bit of a disadvantage there.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. And also, daiquiri is a daiquiri. It's still, I don't know if, like you were saying, it qualifies as being a lazy cocktail since you do have to dirty the cocktail shaker. And it is true. That's a pain in the ass to clean afterwards. So I get where Willis's Punch has its strengths, to be honest.
Well, I know before we started recording, you pointed out that this is apparently International Rum Day that we're recording this on August 16th. So do you have any special plans for International Rum Day? I don't. I'll just go ahead and spoil that now.
Okay.
I don't keep track of all these various days and things, so I wasn't aware it was happening until today.
I see it all over the social media feeds, and I'm not really sure. I see it's both International Rum Day and National Rum Day.
Why not?
Sure. But August 16th, we're recording this on, by the way, National Rum Day, International Rum Day, and people are definitely remarking the occasion with lots of things, and they're showing it on social media, which I think is great. It's always great to have a nice excuse to have a good rum or a good rum cocktail, right? Sure. For me, it's one of the busiest weeks of the year over at the university, and it happens to be my birthday tomorrow. So I'm kind of, thank you. I'm deferring, you would say, National Rum Day to the weekend. I'm going to take some leisure with that, and I'm going to celebrate, I think, by doing a cocktail, believe it or not, Will.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, first of all, happy early birthday. But second of all, is this a special cocktail that you have in mind that you've been planning, or are you just thinking a cocktail in general?
Well, no, I do have a qualifier that I want.
Okay.
I want to do a smoked rum cocktail. Now, I've talked about this in the past. I have some of the equipment. I have both a cloche that I could do smoking with, which I believe that's the right word.
I think so.
And I also have the one that goes like right on top of the glass, and you can kind of do it, and the smoke kind of pours down into it.
It has like a hose or something like that?
No, that's the other one. That's the cloche one. It has like a hose that kind of connects in.
All right.
This one just lets the smoke kind of drop down, so you like put it right onto the rim of the glass, and you light a little bit of wood chips right on the top there, and it's got like a little thing that holds them, and somehow the smoke kind of just filters down into the drink. And it works. There's a few different brands that have done this out there. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere, and it works pretty good. I've done it before, but the only drink I've ever done it for is a smoked rum old fashioned.
Yeah
Which makes sense, right?
Sure.
It's in like the right glass to do it in. It's just a classic smoked drink that I like, and I love imparting that smoke flavor.
Sure.
Here's the part where I need help. I need some Rumcast sourcing here of understanding what else can I do on a smoked rum cocktail. So like, what else is there besides the old fashioned that I can put together fairly easily? Don't need a ton of esoteric things to do.
Yeah.
And that still has that smoky flavor to it, because that's what I'm looking for.
Well, I'm sure the listenership out there can come up with better ideas than me, but off the top of my head, the first thing that came to me was a rum Manhattan, perhaps.
Yes.
I think you may have already thought of that too, but kind of similar, spirit forward vein as an old fashioned. That might work well. For some reason, the first place my mind goes is to spirit forward cocktails for smoking. I feel like I haven't seen that technique used as much with citrusy cocktails.
Right.
And maybe I just haven't seen it, or maybe there's a reason. Maybe it doesn't work as well. I'm not sure, but maybe something for people to, the bar professionals out there, please reach out and let us know the ins and outs of smoking rum cocktails and what John should do other than, the same old boring rum old fashioned.
Exactly. And the other thing that came to mind was this fat washing technique, which is the opposite of doing like the lazy cocktail.
Yeah,
right?
that
you got to put some work in.
Yeah,
but
I've never done that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the concept, and it doesn't seem to be too difficult, so it might be something that I get into this weekend and report back on. We'll see how adventurous I feel.
I've done milk washing before to make like a milk punch, a clarified milk punch, and it's pretty fun actually. And those are tasty. There's some like clarified pina colada recipes out there that look cool. I haven't made one of those, but yeah, that's kind of fun and a little bit wild to do when you're straining all like the curdled milk out and you end up with this perfectly clear. The one that I made was red tinged because I think of some tea that I used in it. It was really nice. I was pleased with it. But yeah, if you get into fat washing, that's pretty advanced. You got to freeze it, then you got to like, filter it out. There's a lot of steps involved there. So you're really signing yourself up for a lot on your birthday weekend.
Will, I'm known for diving into the deep end. So sometimes you just go and see what happens. And I always know, of course, if it doesn't turn out exactly like I want, it's probably because I did it wrong.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of diving into the deep end, that's what we got into with Yann and Marie on this interview. I think you mentioned it in the intro. I don't remember. Yann is the director of marketing and communications. Marie is the cellar master for Isautier. So we got kind of both perspectives on the whole operation there. Talked a lot about them as a producer that is focused not necessarily on just cane juice or just molasses, but really is kind of, and I didn't know this. I knew they did both, but I didn't know that like the fact that they do both was such a big part of their identity and philosophy. Right. Like it's not the case where they primarily do one thing and like a little bit of the other. It's like they really take a lot of pride in doing both and what that allows them to do in terms of blending and everything. So obviously we do talk a lot about the releases that have come out through La Maison Velier, both the two that arrived in the US recently and the ones that preceded it in the EU, I believe. And also the releases, the standard releases they do there, how those differ a little bit in their production process and all that good stuff. So it was great to learn more about Réunion. Having interviews with distilleries on Réunion is something that's been on our list for a while. So it was good to go ahead and cross one of them off the list. But yeah, anything to add before we go over to the interview?
Yeah, the only other things I thought were interesting is their tradition with Rhum Orange, which they like to talk about and have a whole kind of line of, and thought that was interesting to hear the backstory for that. And then maybe the teaser that we'll say towards the end of the interview that there was a product that I wasn't really aware of before we started to look and research this that involves a release from all three of the top distilleries on Réunion Island.
Right.
And that was interesting to hear how that came together also. So a lot of good threads to pull on in this one.
Yeah, well, we'll take a quick break and go ahead and go over to the interview.
Hey, Rumcasters. One thing Will and I have long begged for is smaller rum bottles. Sometimes it's nice to try a new rum without having to spend over $100 on a full 750 milliliter bottle. But that's just one of the reasons why we're excited about a new independent bottler out of Boston called Raising Glasses. They've released their latest line of rums in 375 milliliter bottles that typically retail for less than $50. Raising Glasses' folklore line of rums currently has 7 single cask releases, all over 57.5 ABV, and all featuring original artwork of a mythological creature from its country of origin. What origins might those be? How about Burning Cane, which is a cask-strength 15-year-old Foursquare, Moongazer, a 9-year-old 100% Versailles wooden pot still from Guyana, or Guardians, an 8-year-old Trinidad that was named one of our top 14 rums of 2022. Their brand new releases include a 14-year from Venezuela, 2 9-year-olds from Thailand, and the terrifying Yowie, a 68.3% 16-year Australian beast that's one of the oldest rums ever released from the famed Beenleigh Distillery. These are all available for online ordering in 41 states and in retail stores in both Massachusetts and New York. So get them at raisingglasses.com before the Yowie gets you. Now back to the show.
All right, we are here with Yann Auberval and Marie Ferrand. Yann is the Director of Marketing and Communications. Marie is the Cellar Master from the Isautier Distillery in Réunion Island. And I wanted to tell you both, John and I have been talking about getting a distillery from Réunion on the podcast for a long time now.
Yes.
We've been talking about Réunion rum for years and how many interesting rums come out of there. And this was the past couple of months. That was the time when we were like, okay, we're going to get a distillery from Réunion on the podcast. I had sent an email already to another distillery on the island, and I was trying to figure out who should I contact at Isautier. And as I was doing that, I got an email out of the blue from Kate Perry, who was saying, hey, you guys should really think about doing something with Isautier. And she connected us to Yann, who then had the idea to bring Marie onto the podcast. So it's great. I always love when we can get someone from the production side of things and then someone also from, marketing, sales, that kind of thing, because it's great to have both perspectives. So we're really excited to have you both on the podcast today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start out, it's always interesting to hear how people ended up working in rum. There's so many different winding paths people take to it. So I'd love to know what pulled each of you into this world and how you ended up at Isautier. Marie, if you'd like to go first, and then we can go over to Yann.
Okay. So I've been working for Isautier for 10 years now. But before that, I was not in the alcohol business. I'm a bioscience engineer.
Oh, wow.
I'm from La Réunion, but I studied in France mainland. And then I worked in Singapore. I actually worked a few years in the US before coming back to La Réunion 10 years ago. And when I came back, I really wanted to work for a local company. That's what brought me to Isautier. And then what I really appreciate, that's on top of being a local company, it's a company with a lot of savoir-faire, a tradition that we want to perpetuate. And that's really what interested me in Isautier.
When you were kind of deciding, I want to work for a local company, were there any other contenders? Did you almost not go into rum? Or was rum was Isautier kind of, the one option that really stood out to you?
No, it really was the one option.
Okay.
Really, when I applied for the job, actually, I didn't apply for that particular job, but I applied for Isautier. And then during the interviews, I realized it was really a good company and that interested me. As I just said, the local company and the traditional knowledge really something that I liked. And that's why I chose Isautier.
And Yann, what about you? What brought you into the world of rum?
Actually, we have a lot in common with Marie because I think we have the same path back to La Réunion. Mm-hmm. So I'm from Réunion as well, but I've worked in France and I've been working like 15 years in the cosmetic industry, so something totally different, but working in marketing, of course, for heritage brand and legacy brands. And actually, the fact that brands have an history and have a know-how and a lot of legacy, this is something that was very important for me. And working in the cosmetics, I said myself that if I had to change the industry, the spirits would be quite interesting. And actually, I came back to Réunion 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. So right after the first confinement, the first lockdown, I was in Paris, in France. And I said, okay, maybe now it's time to go back to my roots, to go back to my family and my origins. So I decided to go back to La Réunion. And actually, this also fact that Isautier was a legacy brand with a lot of know-how of history that was very, very interesting for me. And I had the chance to meet with Cyril, so the the GM of the brand, and the project that he had for this brand was really appealing to me. So that's how I came back to Réunion and working for Isautier here on my island, actually.
Yeah. And I think that's a good example, because we like to bring Réunion out of Réunion to show the world about Réunion, and that's exactly what we are doing right now.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the two releases that you've done recently with La Maison and Velier, but I think that's been one of the exciting things for us being in the United States is, I'm sure in France, Réunion rum is a lot easier to find perhaps than in the US, but we don't get as many Réunion rums over here in the US. So it was really exciting to see these two releases. I think probably the only time that I've seen Isautier bottles in the United States before were these two releases. And so it's really exciting to see so many rum enthusiasts over here getting to know the distillery all at one time. And that's why I think it's great to have you both here right now.
And you really knocked the right door, I would say, because this is the oldest distillery in the Réunion Island. So it was born in 1845. So we have 178 years of experience here on the island. And the mission is really to be now the ambassadors for the island outside of our island. So, of course, you're right. It all started with France, but now we try to spread the word and maybe go even further in Europe, in the US with this project with La Maison Velier. It's amazing for us to make people know more about our jewel. This is really, the island is really something that you should come and visit in the future if you have the opportunity.
Yes, it's on the list for sure. I know another guest of ours in the past, Eric Kay, who runs the independent bottler Holmes Key. He took a trip to Réunion maybe a year and a half or so ago and posted some incredible pictures and just had great stories. I'm sure he came by Isautier while he was there. But yeah, ever since I saw that, I was like, that's on the list for sure. It's far away, but I think it would be worth the journey.
Agreed. Yann, you mentioned the oldest distillery on Réunion, which is perfect because my next question had exactly to do with that. But before I ask it, I did want to recognize, for those of you who aren't able to see on Zoom right now as we're recording this interview, that they, Anna Marie, are in the cellar, and there's a beautiful background of these horizontally aging rum barrels. That is really, really nice to see. That's one of my favorite places ever to go when I visit a distillery, is into the cellar to see the smells and see all of that happening, and in real time almost this beautiful product coming together. So anyway, I wanted to ask, as the oldest distillery on Réunion, what do you think the distillery has learned about how to make rum specifically there on the island, including the terroir and the island's natural gifts that give the rum its own uniqueness?
So yes, the distillery was born in 1845, I've said. And actually it was born thanks to two brothers who left France to join the island. And here they fell in love with the island, with the landscape, and with sugarcane. And they started their business with rum. And actually, they wanted to do at that time, they were doing rum, so pure cane juice rum. But very quickly, the French mainland asked that Réunion was a provider for sugar. So they gave priority to the production of sugar. And that's how we have the tradition of using molasses to make rum as well. And really from the beginning, we were one of the only distillery to do both. So pure cane juice, that was really the beginning, but also molasses rum. And this is something that we are continuing today, being one of these unique distillery to make both type of rum on Réunion and even the world. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed. I know your distillery does molasses and fresh cane juice. There's I know at least one other distillery on the island does the same, and you don't necessarily see that in as many places, throughout the Caribbean. There are some distilleries that do it, but it seems like it's very common in Réunion. And so does it really just go all the way back to that decision back in history to prioritize sugar production as well? And I'm guessing sugar production is still in full swing on the island.
Yeah, that's really the history of the island. The sugar canes were introduced in the island at the beginning of the 17th century. And that's about when people just came to Réunion, because before that it was a desertic island. And then at the beginning of the 19th century, then France decided that the island needed to produce sugar. Actually, it's when they lost Mauritius and Haiti. They had different names at the time, but they lost their sugar islands. So they decided that Réunion, which was called Île Bourbon at the time. Yeah, Bourbon. Yes, I know.
That's ironic, right? For us over here, I was telling Will that.
So Bourbon had to become the sugar island. So that's when the distilleries switched to molasses rum. But when I say switch, it's not correct because they also kept the pure juice cane rum making. So that's why there are 3 distilleries in the island, and 2 of them are making sugarcane rum and molasses rum.
Okay, so it's 2 out of the 3. Okay.
Maybe if you just also to have some figures in mind, Réunion, the size of Réunion and the production of sugarcane is you produce more sugarcane of Réunion than Martinique plus Guadeloupe together. So you know that for us for the French rum, French style rum and agricole rum, Martinique and Guadeloupe, maybe you are more familiar with those kind of rum.
Yeah.
But just for you to have in mind that in terms of surface and the production of sugarcane, if you take both, it's smaller than what we are doing on Réunion. So I think that was the decision at that time to take the opportunity or advantage of this big island with a lot of sugarcane to make sure that we produce enough sugar that were needed for the mainland France.
Wow.
So that's one point. And the other one is we were born like this, but now we really, really like to be one of the unique distilleries to do both. And we play with this. We do a lot. We do Rhum Agricole, we do molasses rum, and we do a lot of blends. And actually, there is an infinite world between the two. And we can really, and that's the work of Marie, of course, to show that there is no one better than the other. It's really a question of taste, of how you like your rum. And actually, we can really play with the more, let's say, caramel or sweet part of molasses, and maybe more vegetable part of the fresh cane. And we can really, really play with the two. So that's an infinite possibility for us ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's so fascinating. And, it's interesting because if you go back through the history of Caribbean distilleries, there were many, a long time ago they would work with molasses. They would have some fresh juice that they would use in their fermentations. And over time, there was kind of industry consolidation, and distilleries, many of them specialized more in, just molasses. They're kind of decoupled from the sugarcane fields because of industrialization. And now a trend that we're starting to see is a lot of those distilleries that have been doing, exclusively molasses rum for a long time. They're finding ways, they're planting sugarcane and finding ways to incorporate fresh juice into what they're doing. And I think it's so exciting because, as you were saying, there's so many, blends you can do that bring in different flavor profiles. And it's interesting that, the whole time in Réunion, you've been doing it all along. So I think that's fascinating. And, one thing I did want to talk about is you brought up Martinique and Guadeloupe, and Réunion is one of the few places outside the Caribbean that can make Rhum Agricole. I know there are a few others, but how would you compare Rhum Agricole from Réunion to places like Martinique and Guadeloupe? Because many of our listeners, especially those who are in the United States, are very familiar with Martinique Rhum Agricole, Guadeloupe Rhum Agricole. And I know Rhum Agricole has many of there's certain standards that regardless of where it's made, if it's made in Réunion or in the Caribbean, you have to abide by certain standards. But because the terroir is totally different, I would imagine there are some differences between a Rhum Agricole made in Réunion and one in Martinique and Guadeloupe. So for people who are less familiar with the Rhum Agricoles of Réunion, how would you describe the differences?
Yeah, I think before talking about the differences, of course, you have to say that agricole rum can be recognized because it has some common points. Vegetable scent, like grass when you just cut grass, or better sugarcane fields when they have just been harvested. That's what you have in common in all agricole rum. But I would say that in the Caribbean agricole rum, there's a scent that I have difficulty to put words on that, but that's how I recognize them. There's a kind of milk scent or like a melted butter, but the good way, that because melted butter can be rank, it can be not a good thing. That's
the good melted butter.
Way of melted butter that we don't have so much in the agricole rum in La Réunion, I think. But on the other hand, in La Réunion, there's a yeast scent like bread, bread loaf, just cut, that you have in the agricole rum in La Réunion that you don't have, or you don't have that much in the Caribbean agricole rum. And that's for the white rum. Then when you talk about agricole old rum, then there are more differences, but this time it comes from the terroir also, but also from the aging process that is different in plenty of ways. But I would say that the main difference are the barrels that we use, because in La Réunion, and especially in Isautier, we use French oak barrels, and we use new barrels. The one that you see behind us are new barrels. And the rum stays in new barrels for a few months, sometimes more than a year, and then goes to old barrels. And even our old barrels, they are barrels that contain our own rum before, or for some of them, they contain cognac. So that's very different from the Caribbean agricole rum, because they mainly used ex-bourbon barrels. So the product that was in the barrels before is different. They use only old barrels, and the barrels for bourbon are very, very heated. They are black on the inside. The one that we use are much less heated. So that makes a very big difference at the end in the product. So when you taste an agricole rum, 10 years old agricole rum from the Caribbean or in Réunion Island, the taste will be very different. You'll have a more, I would say, woody taste on the Caribbean rum. When in the rum from La Réunion, it would be, I would say, more delicate. Actually, that's my point of view. More so delicate with an aroma palette that can be larger.
So less maybe barrel characteristics than Caribbean rum would have, and maybe the distillate shines through a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that came through to me in the 16-year Rhum Agricole release that La Maison Velier did with you guys. You know, when I saw 16 years old aging in, there it is, aging in that kind of tropical weather environment, sometimes, because I've had rums that are that old, that just, you know, the barrel just takes over too much, too oaked. And so I was a little worried if it would be over oaked for me, but it wasn't at all when I tasted it. I thought the balance of the distillate and the barrel was very nice. So that makes a lot of sense. So you start for a short amount of time in new French oak, and then you switch the rum over to used barrels, mostly used rum barrels, but also some used cognac barrels. That's correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, other difference is that in the Caribbean, the angel share is more about 8%, when in Réunion it's more between 4 to 5%.
Okay.
So also makes
that is a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And where do the barrels come from usually? Do you have them come off island onto island, or you recycle a lot from what's there?
No, but they come from France mainland. We work with 2 barrel makers, and with them we decided the heat that we wanted for the barrel. They were designed specifically for us. So every 2 years now we buy barrels from them, and then those new barrels with time are becoming old barrels. And for the first one, when in this cellar, because this cellar, the one in which we are right now, was built back in 2005. So at the beginning, we also bought some barrels which contain cognac before, but we also bought them to the barrel maker with we work now. So he helped us select those old barrels.
I wanted to shift a little bit to talk about the distillery itself also. So I know that you have the current distillery in Saint-Pierre, I think, is built in 2011. But we know, as you mentioned, the history of Isautier goes back way longer than that. So I wanted to ask, in the process of moving now to a new distillery, how did that long tradition and your history inform the process of putting together this new distillery? And what, if anything, did you take from the old distillery and push over and still use today?
Well, so first I have a correction. The current distillery is in place since the 1960s.
Only off by a little bit.
Plants, yeah, but I was wondering, 2011, what date is it? It's the date when the bottling plants, which is also part of Isautier, with La Maison Isautier, it was installed right next to the current distillery.
Okay, so it was the bottling plants. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But when Louis and Charles Isautier, they installed the first distillery in Saint-Pierre. It was already in the south of the island in Saint-Pierre, but it was closer to the sea and more, I would say, downtown, or what's downtown now. So in the 1960s, they moved to this area, which at the time was in the middle of the sugarcane fields, and they had more space here, and it was further from the town center. And at the time, what changed is that we now use a continuous column, but what we kept is the fermentation process. We still use open tank for fermentation.
Gotcha. And do you play with the fermentation times, or it's pretty standard as a process?
It's quite standard. We have two different times. For the molasses rum, it's 24 hours. For the agricole rum, it's 35 hours. This we changed over time. Before that, it was 31st hours, but we decided with time that 35 hours was better for our rum. So right now, for our two types of rum, that's the time fermentation that we use. And now we are starting to work on other products, other types of white rums and for those, we could play with the fermentation time. For our two basic, I would say that we stick with the 24 and 35 hours.
Right. But there's some exploration going on there, it sounds like, and you're figuring out maybe there's another long fermentation time, something like that?
Yeah, that's very early to say, but yeah, we're thinking of this type of products, yes.
Our colleagues from Réunion are doing this kind of product as well. So it's part of what we call indication géographique, so geographical indication Réunion Island. So we could do that in the future. We can play. Once again, that's the interest of working with this kind of product, that we can do so many things and change a lot of parameters and have something totally different. So that's very interesting. But back to your question about what we had before, actually, so Marie answered what she keeps on doing today, but it's very important for us as well to keep the history. And we have some historical tools that were used in the past that are now in our museum, because Maison Isautier is also the one of the main stakeholders of the Rhum Museum of La Réunion. It's called La Saga du Rhum. It's the only museum in the island. And here you can also discover what a sugarcane mill that is unique in the world. So you can maybe have in mind that being so far from all producers of any tool, when it comes to La Réunion, so we had ordered, I think it was in the early 20th century, this mill, and it was not working well with the other equipment. So actually, we had some local engineers that had to find a solution to plug everything together. And it makes that this mill is unique, and we like to call it like a piece of art. Like it was what we say in French, génie créole. So it's like a Creole engineering, let's say, because we have to find solutions when we are so far from everything. Right. You have to adapt and to make sure that what you have ordered, you cannot send it back. It's not that simple. Today it's not simple, but at that time it was even more difficult. And we have this kind of thing in the museum. So we still pay tribute to what our colleagues in the past were doing in the distillery.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the museum also, because it sounds amazing, first of all, for anybody that visits, La Saga du Rhum, right? And in English, saga for us, I think, connotes something that is a very long history, a long story. I don't know if that translates exactly into French, but it sounds like there is, right? So that's a really, I think it's an apt and cool name.
And cool. Did you say the Rum Museum is the only museum on the island?
Yes. So actually, when you go to Martinique, for example, you have so many different distilleries, and you can visit each distillery. They will tell you about their process, how they're making rum, etc. Yeah. But for us, it was the idea of the former GM of the brand. They say, okay, we need to have a museum dedicated to the rum and the culture of rum on the island, and the link between rum and Réunion people. Because what we often say, we say that on the island, because sugarcane is everywhere, we have all someone in our family who is working with sugarcane. And we often say that we are all the children of sugarcane. So that's why this link between rum, sugarcane, and Réunion people was very important to tell the story. We had to tell the story and to have a museum dedicated to this. And we, of course, explain the process of doing rum, how the sugarcane is used, and some more historical or cultural facts also that are very important for people really to understand why we are doing molasses rum today, how we use the molasses from 2 sugar factories on the island, etc. And something that is very important as well, because we are doing a lot of rum, so molasses, and we have also some other products with rum, made of rum, that has also linked to the culture on the island.
Mm-hmm. On the note of rum culture in Réunion, it's always interesting to ask about what that looks like, because I think how we experience Réunion rum in the U.S. can often be very different from how locals experience rum. So I wanted to ask, how prevalent is rum relative to other spirits on the island? My answer after hearing my guess after hearing all of that is very prevalent. But what types of rum are people typically drinking? I know in Martinique the tea punch is huge and a big part of the culture. So is there a Réunion equivalent? Is it also the tea punch in Réunion? What does all of that look like?
So we have the equivalent of tea punch in La Réunion, and it's called calou, because it's more with molasses rum than with the agricole rum.
Interesting.
With the sugar, cane sugar, and lime. So exactly the same. So it's very difficult to answer this question, because rum, of course, is everywhere, but the reputation is not that beautiful.
Elevated.
We all have, it's for a lot of people, it was linked with slavery or with poverty. And today, really, that's also a mission that we have, is to show that this is something interesting, this is something that is good, this is something that is complex, that every Réunion people should be proud of, because of this link between the sugarcane and the rum. But it's not that easy. So to answer your question, if you go to eat with someone here, the tea punch won't be the first thing that we're gonna offer you. We don't like this, but they will offer maybe a whiskey, because that's something that is coming from abroad, and it looks like that's something much more selective, and rum is much more for us, something in-house that you don't want especially to show. But this is changing, and that's the work we're doing with good products, of course, and also to educate the people and to make sure that they understand the know-how behind, and that they all become kind of ambassadors for us as well. So that's a long-term mission, but that's really, really important for us, so that we can be as proud of our rum as the Martinique people are from theirs, or where people are from theirs. But there's something that is very, very important here, and people are really proud of this tradition. It's what we call rhum arrangé. So it's not the what we were talking about, the dark rum and the old rum, but still, this is a tradition that you will find in every family on the island. They will take some white rum and put some spices or herbs or fruits and let this macerate for a couple of weeks or months. And they will offer this to their guests, because that's really a tradition of hospitality and live together on the island. So this is a real tradition and very big, very important, and everybody is proud of that. So now we need to have the same thing for white rum and the dark rum to show that we can do plenty of things, that there's very versatile. We can do many things with those spirits.
Right. It's great without fruit in it too. Although, yeah, it's always really cool hearing about all the different rum RNG combinations, and that's a style of rum that I think was unfamiliar to a lot of Americans as well until a little bit more recently. We're starting to see more of those products come over, and I know that they have more availability in Europe as well. But Marie, I wanted to go back to the production process a little bit. You were talking about fermentation times, relatively short fermentation. I think you said the same fermentation times for both molasses and cane juice.
No, 24 hours for molasses and 35 hours
okay,
for
24 for molasses. Okay. So I wanted to ask, are there any other similarities or differences when you're making molasses rum versus cane juice? Because I know fermentation is one of the variables, but then you also have distillation. So does distillation look the same? Are you changing some of the parameters of how you do that? What does it look like after fermentation?
Yeah, we change the parameters. So at Isautier, we use the same equipment to do both types of rum, but we don't do them at the same time. When the season began, and for us, it began a few weeks ago. It began at the end of July. We start with making molasses rum. And then at the middle of the season, we switch to agricole rum. And then we go back to molasses rum until the end of the season, which is around mid-December. So we use the same equipment, the same fermentation tanks, and the same column, but we change the parameters. So I already told about the fermentation duration length for fermentation. And for distillation, we have two main differences. The first one is that for molasses rum, we do some extractions. We remove some of the fusel oils and other compounds.
Okay.
Not all of them, but we remove a few of them, and we taste the rum on a daily basis to have it set correctly. And this we don't do with agricole rum. We keep everything for agricole rum. And the second point is the distillation degree. For agricole rum, we distill the rum at 72% alcohol, when for molasses rum, we distill it at around 89%.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a significant difference.
Yeah.
And then in terms of aging, you talked about kind of the cooperage, the barrels that you're using. Do you tend to age both molasses and Rhum Agricole the same way?
Yep, we do. We start the same way with new barrels, and then we switch to old barrels. But we taste the rum. We don't say, okay, we'll leave it 6 months in new barrels and then we switch to old barrels. I taste them before changing. And I tend to leave the molasses rum longer in new barrels before moving it to old barrels. But it just depends on the taste. But it seems that it goes quicker for agricole rum than for molasses rum. But that's also because we have another specific thing that we do here is that we put the rum in barrels not right after, but the rum that comes out from the column, we put it this way in the barrels, meaning that for molasses rum, we put it in the barrels at 89 degrees, which is very high.
Wow,
but because we have a very long aging process, that is a good point for us. But that's also why we leave the rum in new barrels quite a long time. Because when the alcohol degree is high, then the exchanges with wood and the air with oxygen will be slower than if it's a little bit lower.
So I wanted to ask a little bit more about the La Maison Velier releases. Yann, you held up the bottle earlier, and we've had a chance, by the way, Will and I, to try both of those, and they're very nice. And one thing that's interesting is, as much as we're talking about some of the differences here, and there are, when you taste them, certainly differences as well, you can also tell they're cousins, right? Or they're related. There certainly is something there that binds the two of them together. So I thought that was very interesting. So I wanted to ask, how did those two releases come about, and how did that process come together for getting them to market? And then really is, how did you settle on those two rums being the rums that were brought over?
So it all started like in 2021. So when I told you the mission for us now is to leave the island and to spread the word and try to find some new markets. And those starts with France. In France, it's very, very popular for our rhum arrangé, but it was not super popular for the old rums. Mm-hmm. And we had to find a new distributor for the French market. And actually, we met with La Maison du Whisky. And when we met the team, they said, oh, that's amazing. We want really to have the product. The quality of the product is amazing. We need to do some releases, and we will introduce you to Luca Gargano. Mm-hmm. And actually, we met with Luca. And it was, I don't know if you know Luca.
He's a very animated person.
Jan's waving his hands all around. Yeah.
Italian, you know.
Yes, yeah.
But actually, it's really the culture that he has about rum. He has a own collection, and he told us, to Isautier, that he had some bottles from the 50s in his a private collection, so that was amazing. And said, yes, of course, I want to do something with you. And actually, Marie has selected some samples to show what we are doing. So different types of molasses and different age. And we sent those samples to Luca and to La Maison du Whisky. And we had like two first releases in 2021. For the French market, or at least for European market, with La Maison Velier. So that's how it started. So those were two single casks, and they were revealed during the Whiskey Live Fair in Paris in September 2021.
Yes.
And after that, so it was like 300 bottles each. And at that time, it was the two oldest casks that we had in the cellar. So it's really the story of what we were doing the best, what we could do with our own philosophy of aging that Marie explained earlier. And after that, of course, a lot of people were quite frustrated not to have the bottle. So we decided to do another one. It was a small batch, so a little more quantity. And this was released in early 2022. And at the same time, La Maison Velier team said, oh, guys, we really think that you need to go even further. And maybe the US market can be very, very interesting for you. But you need to find the project and some products for this market. And that's how we were introduced to Kate Perry. Mm-hmm. And actually, we sent out some samples to her via Paris, of course. And she was super excited. And she said, oh, guys, I want to do something. And she selected actually the two rums that we have released this year on the market. So it all starts with Marie, actually, because she chooses what are the products that are ready to go. We try for those projects to have like either single cask or small batch, so you don't have really blending at that time. Right. But still, the selection of the degree, the ABV, etc. This is what we can discuss with the partner, and in that particular project with Kate, to make sure that we decide the best way of enjoying the product. But Marie is really involved in this part as well, of course.
I was going to ask Marie, when Kate says, okay, we want to do two, we want to do a cane juice and a molasses release, did you go, yes? Or were you hoping for one or the other? Or
Yeah, really, because as Yann said before, we are proud of doing both, and we really like to have both as a comparison and not saying that one is better than the other. That's what Yann said, but it's very important for us. Especially, I'm not sure that in the US you have the same thing, but in France, there's kind of a competition between the Caribbean agricole rum and the Réunion molasses rum, and we really don't like this kind of useless conflict.
There's room enough in the world for all of that rum. I agree.
A kind of terroir, we were really excited when she chose two rum and molasses rum and agricole rum. I think that really makes sense for us.
But of course, we're super proud, and when we have this kind of authority in the rum industry that I interested in your rum. It's super interesting for us, of course, this advocacy that we have around the brand, and that's very, very important. But on the other hand, we have a very small cellar because here we are inside, but just for you to know, it's 450 casks.
Oh, okay.
460 we bought as well. So it's very small. So we need to protect this because, that those cats that are 16 years old, when they are out, there's nothing left. So that's how we also need to pick and choose the right partners. And of course, for this one, it was a no-brainer. This is very important. And actually, the story, the writing itself, and we're super, super happy of what's happening now.
Yeah, I was going to mention that they're both 16-year releases, right? Age 16 years, one cane juice and one molasses. And I think we've already heard a lot of people are buying both just because of the experience of being able to try and experience both of them together in that way and see, some of the differences and things like that. I'm going to ask something that I think is a challenging question here for you because I think there are some people out there who they might either not have access to both or they can't afford both bottles. Do you have one, or let's put it this way, how would you help that person decide which of them they're going to buy, a cane juice or the molasses, if they didn't have a chance to try it first?
Oh, that depends on the person. I think I have to discuss with that person to know its taste, because the molasses rum has this typical freshness that I really like in the molasses rum, even after 16 years in the aging cellar. It has this... But this one in particular, this mint scent and this aromatic herb scent and taste combined with sweetness and fruitness. When the agricole rum has this typical vegetal thing. And for this one, there's a kind of, I think, caramel taste. So it depends. If the person like freshness or more something like sweetness, I can guide him through the molasses rum. But then if it's somebody that's used with, for example, only Caribbean agricole rum, then I would say then buy the Réunion agricole rum so that you can compare.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one, I think. And so what I'm hearing from you, though, is you get molasses side is a little bit more of the typical sweetness you would expect from a molasses-based rum, right? Whereas the cane juice varietal, you still have that fresh agricole. There's something of that in there, even at that 16-year aging. And that's where you'd kind of lead people based on their experience with agricole to start with. Is that fair?
Yes, okay. And that's a very good point, because it's very important for Isautier, the choice of the barrels, the choice of the light heating. We really want to be able to taste the white rum in our dark rum.
Yes.
We don't want to lose them.
I agree,
and
100%.
have them overwhelmed with the wood. We really want to keep this white characteristic and then add some others. And that's very, very important for us.
If you were with us today, and if I would have done the tasting session with you guys, he would have started with the white rum.
Yes.
Would have
good.
said,
Yes.
Pick the white rum here, and then we'll have the 5 years, 15 years, whatever.
Yes.
But you need to compare. That's really important in the philosophy and what we want to do. And that's very important that we insist on this, that even after 15 or 16 years, we still have the raw material that is still super present in the juice.
Right.
We're on the next plane over.
No, and John, I'm glad you brought up John and I. We've both tasted both of the releases, but we hadn't had a chance to talk about them together. And I had the exact same takeaway that you did, John, which is that there are clear differences between the molasses-based rum and the Rhum Agricole, but there's this really interesting, just kind of signature, I guess. You can tell that they came from the same place in a really interesting way, and that's one of the things that I enjoyed the most about them. But Marie, I love what you said about wanting to be able to taste the white rum in the dark rum, because so often we have conversations with rum enthusiasts, and sometimes I feel like it takes people a long time to find the aged rum agricoles that they really enjoy, because sometimes a common complaint that I'll hear from people, and this isn't aimed necessarily at a single distillery or, a single origin or anything, but people will say that cane juice rums, they lose that kind of freshness a lot of times when they age, past a certain point. And every now and then you'll find those aged cane juice rums that manage to still capture some of that freshness in there,
yes.
But bring in, the barrel and the great things from aging. And that's one of the things that I think this release did really well that I enjoyed about it. But one thing I wanted to ask was, I know these releases that you did with La Maison and Velier are, I'm assuming, much different in style than the typical rums that you release through your own bottlings. I know you mentioned you do a lot of blending, a lot of bottles that feature both sugarcane juice rum and molasses rum. So I just wanted to ask, how much do these releases that came in through La Maison and Velier, how much do they differ from typical releases that you do?
Well, I would say that it's kind of the thing you were saying between the agricole rum and the molasses rum. For our releases, you'll find that they are different, but you'll still find the Isautier signature, as we say, because that's really the aging process that that all of our rum go through that gives this signature. But yeah, for our releases, we do a little bit more blending, but not too much also. I would say that's for blending in general. I will mix maybe 2 rums, sometimes 4, but no more.
Okay.
It can be maybe surprising, but we really take care about the rum since it goes through at the time. First, we really take care of having a good white rum, again, agricole and molasses rum. We selected the one that have a lot of character to the one that we put in the barrels are the one that have the more character. And then we really take care of following the aging process very precisely. So at the end, we are happy with, I would say, all the barrels. So we like to mix some of them, but not so much, only for blending when we want to blend molasses rum and agricole rum, when we want to mix different ages also. Sometimes we put a younger rum with an older rum to do some blending, but we don't have to put 40 barrels together to have the taste that we are expecting.
It's always interesting to me to hear kind of the philosophy behind blending. And I wanted to ask you, Marie, do you typically start with an idea of what you want to create before you start tasting rums? Or do the ideas come from tasting rums first and then thinking, oh, this might go well with this? Or do you start with having an end point in mind? What does that process look like?
In general, I work more with I know what I have in the barrel, so I know the taste of the rum, and from them, I decide what I want to do with them. In general, that's how I work. After that, we have some range that, for example, we now have a 5-year-old rum, which is a blend of agricole rum and molasses rum. We have a 7-year-old rum that is 100% molasses rum, and we have a 10-year-old rum, which is 100% agricole rum. So now that you have that range and that's settled and that you want to continue it, then I have to work to still have the same 5-year-old rum with the same taste. So that's when I work the other way around.
So I need a little bit of help as an American who will mention we're starting to see Rhum Arrangé arrive here a little bit and Rhum Aromatic, but I don't know a whole lot about those. And I was hoping, I saw on your website, you have Rhum Arrangé, you have Rhum Aromatic, and my pronunciation of those are probably terrible. But how are those typically used there? Are there major differences between them? And can you clear that up a little bit for me?
Sure. So thank you, because you are super curious, and I will answer your question. Actually, aromatic for us is a name of a range of a Rhum Arrangé. So for us, it's not two different types of products. Everything is called Arrangé. And that's what I told you earlier. So that's a tradition or reunion in every family that you're going to do your own recipe. So you take white rum, You put spices, herbs, and fruits. And actually, every family has a different recipe. And it's a secret that is super protected and that you want to keep. You don't want the other one to know about. But Isautier, back in the 1970s, wanted to make this more popular. And we have launched some, what we could say, kind of industrial. And in the early 2010, we've launched this outside of Réunion on the French market, and it became super popular in France. So that's where we are number one brand. We are really the leading brand in Rhum Arrangé, but we have our own way of doing arrangé that we think is the best. It's really that we are working with some Réunion ingredients. So we have ginger, for example. We have lychees. We have vanilla, so the best vanilla in the world is coming from Réunion, right? We have different other ingredients. So we're going to do ourselves our infusion. Let's macerate the vanilla in the white rum. And when we think it's ready, we're going to filter everything and we're going to blend to do the final recipe. And all the bottles that we are selling at Isautier are free from any fruits or wood inside.
So nothing's floating in the bottle.
Yeah, we think that the risk is that you have a kind of over maceration over time, and maybe the taste won't be that stable over time. So that's why we are removing it. And the quality you can have from the first drop to the last drop, the same taste and the same quality of the product. Right. So this is the way we are doing arrangé. So we have in our range some arrangé. That's products that are at 40% ABV. And we have launched for us our what we call aromatics. And this is more like the white rum with some fruit juices. So pineapple, for example, or passion fruit with some sugar. So 100% natural, and the ABV is lower. It's like 24%. But the philosophy behind is the same. So that's really mixing some white rum with something else to create this recipe.
Got it. Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to ask about that I found particularly interesting as we were researching Isautier, and that is that there's a brand out there in Réunion, or how you say it was Réunion? Did I say that better? La Réunion? I got closer, I think.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'm working on it. It's called Rhum Charrette. And I saw that it is produced as a collaboration between the three rum distilleries there on Réunion. I wanted to ask, just in general, can you talk about that some, and how much is Isautier involved with that?
So Rhum Charrette is definitely the most popular rum brand on the island. And it was born in 1972. And as you said, it's a kind of collaboration between all the distilleries in the island. So it's called GIE in French. I don't know how you would say in English, but actually at that time, so in 1972, the custom authorities, let's say, they wanted to make sure that they can track all the rum production on the island. And at that time, people were buying rum directly at the distillery, but the quantities, you could never track them correctly. So they decided that all the rum should be sold in a bottle. And that's where this GIE, this group, was created. And they asked that all distilleries would deliver their rum to this group, and the group will blend everything and deliver in a bottle so that we can track the quantities exactly. And so that's how it was born. So at that time, I don't know how many distilleries there were. Now, I mean, after years and years, some distilleries have disappeared. So now it's only 3 of us doing the same work. So delivering part of our production to this group so that they can create. And Rhum Charrette, actually, the name, so Charrette is like a cart. I don't know if you've seen the bottle. Actually, on the bottle, you can see like a beef that is holding some cane to the factory. I don't know.
Yes.
And actually, this in French is called the charrette. So I think it's like a cart or a car or a coach. I don't know. And that's how people were referring to this bottle. So they're saying, oh, yes, we want a bottle of Charrette. And it became the name of the brand afterwards. So now we are 3 big distillery or industrial distillery on the island. Isautier is the oldest one, but the smallest one, which is doing a white rum in the northeast of the island. And we have Rivière du Mât, who is doing rum in the east of the island. So in terms of quantity or proportion, we are the smallest part of this Rhum Charrette. The biggest one will be a Savannah, and the second will be Rivière du Mât.
Well, I was going to ask, my next question is going to be maybe a controversial question. I was going to ask whose rum stands out the most in Rhum Charrette? Which distillery can you taste the most when you try Rhum Charrette? But maybe...
I think this changed over the years because, as Yann said, it's again a historical fact that we have this Charrette rum. So the proportion changed over time, and then also the rum from the distilleries changed over time. As he said at the beginning, there were more than 3 distilleries that were put in the Charrette rum. Now there are only 3, but then again, the proportion between the 3 changed. And the rum from 3 distilleries changed over years also.
Right.
There was a huge progress, I think, in the white rum in Réunion Island for the last, I would say, 20 to 30 years. So the Charrette rum also changed a lot. But people in La Réunion, they knew Charrette. I would say the taste can change. It's not a problem for them. They just say it's Charrette rum, it's okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's almost like a little Reunion rum time capsule.
Isn't it?
as you go through the years. I wish every country had something like this.
I was going to say the same thing. I think that is so novel and communal. You know, it's really, really cool to see all the distilleries coming together to produce this. It's fantastic. I hope at some point, that we can get over there, Will, and we can try that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Yann and Marie, we've been through nearly all the questions that we wanted to get to. We do have one last segment on the Rumcast, kind of a bonus round of questions dreamed up by my co-host, John. We call it the rapid fire round. And the goal is John asks a bunch of very quick questions that have short answers to them. It's kind of like the first thing that you think of when you hear the question. And John, I know we've done this before where we've had 2 guests on at the same time, and I think you have different strategies for how to deal with that. So how would you suggest we approach this with both Yann and Marie?
So this is a good question. I think if there's something that you have an answer for, please jump in. But I'm going to try to say the first few we're going to ask for both of you to answer, and then maybe I'll ask one of you for some of the other questions. But if I do that and you have a good, quick answer, feel free to jump in. So, clear as mud.
Are you up for it?
Let's go.
All right.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, so what I'm going to do is we put a very generous 60 seconds on the clock. Very generous 60 seconds. So, John, I have it ready to go. And are you ready to jump in?
Let's go.
All right. I've got 60 seconds and go.
All right. For both of you, neat or on the rocks?
Neat.
On the rocks.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Column, pot, or blend?
Column.
Column for both of you? Makes sense.
Makes sense.
All right. This is a tough one. Aged or unaged rum? What's your preference?
Aged.
Okay.
Okay, we agree now.
This is probably the toughest one right here I have. We always ask this, but it's particularly tough this time. Molasses or cane juice?
Molasses.
And Yann?
So I would say cane juice, but...
Okay. Hey, that's good. All right. I'm probably going to mispronounce, but tea punch or kandu?
Kalou.
Kalou.
Gotta be.
Okay. All right. Marie, your favorite rum not made in Réunion, Mauritius, or Martinique? Outside of those 3 places, do you have a favorite rum?
Difficult. I like Mount Gay.
Oh, okay.
So do
Great
we.
choice.
Okay. All right. Yann, what person has taught you the most about rum over time?
Marie.
Good answer.
Excellent. All right. For either one of you, does it really make you cringe when you hear a non-French speaker pronounce the label is Isautier?
That's okay for us because we're not part of the family.
Plenty of people still working. They might be.
All right.
So just don't do it around a family member. We got it.
Yann, what is the best time of year to drink rum arrangé?
The best time of the year?
Yes. or a holiday?
Like every day.
Every day.
Every day. Jan is like, what kind of question is that? Every day.
I mean, what?
So we mentioned that you call a molasses-based a rum traditional or a rum industrial, right? And then you call the cane juice a rum agricole. So when you blend them, is it fair to call it a rum industrial?
No, yeah, that's a much better name.
Yeah. And we blend it. Yes, actually.
Okay.
No, because actually we're doing a lot of blending between white rum and agricole and molasses rum. We have created a brand that is called Agent Double, so double agent. And our double agent range is really the range where we can play with the proportion between the two and show the impact of one of the other on the taste. So we have released this in France last year. We have the double agent number 1 and double agent number 2, and they are both like 65% of one and 35% of the other. So we have a mirror effect so that you can compare the one that has 65% agricole and 35% molasses,
awesome.
one that is the other way around. So this double agent is really a philosophy for us for the future.
Well, first of all, that's a much better name than industrial. And second of all, put me down for a bottle of 007 because I want that one for sure.
Yeah, so I was the romantic on the names.
All right. And finally, besides great rum, Réunion Island is known for its famous volcano, Piton de la Fournaise, which is considered one of the world's most active volcanoes. Yes. Is this active because every now and then it gets a little bit of Isautier rum thrown in there, or is that a thing? Do we ever play with that, or is that a bad idea?
Yeah, we have arrangé, which is called volcanic, actually.
Oh, there you go. You see?
Yeah.
It all comes together. Perfect.
All right, that's time.
That's one arrangé, with some chili inside. So there's really this effect of eruption, let's say, in your mouth when you taste it. That's really, really good. You should definitely try it. But yes, that's one of the most active volcanoes. It's active. It just started 2 days ago. It has been active.
Oh, wow.
And we are really on the slopes of this volcano. It's just behind this, you see this barrel, like 20 kilometers away, you have the volcano.
Oh, now I'm nervous.
Right? We gotta get this rum, all of it, soon. We've got to buy it all. Make sure, yeah. Well, that's great. The rum is lava, we'll call it.
Well, Yann and Marie, thank you for humoring us with that segment. Really appreciate you both taking time on a Saturday to take us inside the cellar and tell us all about Isautier rum. Before we let you go, is there anything we didn't get to, anything that you want to share with listeners before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think it's good. Thank you for having us. That's as we said, we want to the brand and the product, the rums to go over to conquer the world. So we were super happy, and it's not a problem that it was a Saturday for us at all. And we really enjoyed our time. At least I enjoyed my time with you guys, and I think I'm looking forward to see the results and the interview when it's ready.
No, we had a great time, and it's really cool. You know, we're starting to see more and more reviews of the two rums that were released in the U.S. pop up. So it's really great to get to see people experiencing this distillery for the first time, and it was a treat for us to get to experience it as well. So I really want to get my hands on some of those blends that you were talking about, though. Those sound really interesting.
That's really. I hope that's the only the beginning for us on the US market. We have plenty of other products, and yes, we will see how it goes from there. But we haven't talked about the range that we have that is dedicated to very important people in the distillery. We have some new arrangés. We have plenty of projects. So maybe that will be a new episode of the Rumcast in the future.
Part 2.
Definitely. We'll get Kate on the phone and tell her that we need more, and she can help figure out how to bring some more of that over here, hopefully.
Perfect. Sounds great.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rumcast. If you want to learn more about Isautier, we will put up some links in the show notes to their website, and anything else interesting that we can find, we'll throw in there as well. But as always, thanks so much for listening. If you have thoughts of these two Isautier releases, or maybe you've tried more, maybe you've tried the multi-distillery reunion blend that we talked about at the end, would love to hear your thoughts on those. So as always, you can send us an email, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. Or you can send us a message on social media. John, where can they find us there?
Yeah, we're at the Rumcast on Twitter, or now X. Also on Instagram as well as Facebook. You can find us there and you can leave some comments. There was a lot of great comments and back and forth for some of the lazy cocktails that people made recently, and just people bouncing things off of one another, and that was really cool to see. So yeah, join the conversation, get involved, get engaged on social media, or like Will said, give us an email. I want to know more about smoked rum cocktails, of course, like we said in the intro. So yeah, let me know. What am I going to try to make here? Let me go into that deep end, and I will figure it out as I go through. So I'm just looking for fun stuff to do with it. I've had it now, Will, for more than a year, so I need to get with it.
Just collecting dust.
Right? So I've got lots to work on, and I need some help. So yeah, let us know. And I'm looking forward to this weekend, the deferred National Rum Day celebration and birthday celebration. So that'll be a fun one, and we'll do a virtual cheers to everyone. Yeah,
and on behalf of all the Rumcast listeners out there, a happy early birthday to you, and maybe on your actual belated birthday celebration, I'll also send you a happy belated birthday celebration text. But until next time, enjoy your special National Rum Day celebration.
Cheers.